Hey guys, peekaboo, this is your host, Ariana Lane. Really excited to be back. Guys, we have so much to cover because something really weird is happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But before we dive in, guys, please hit like and subscribe. It would help my channel so much. Thank you. And it's interesting how so many fake ICE outrage stories have been emerging after this Somalian fraud was exposed in Minnesota under the watch of Tampon Tim, Ilhan Omar, and Jacob Frey. And it's almost like these Minnesota politicians were caught stealing a shit ton of money from the people they represent, got caught, and now they're freaking out, throwing a temper tantrum by trying to divert attention into anything else but themselves. They're just like, ICE, 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 look over there, don't look at us, don't look at us. And it's like, interesting, okay, because Minneapolis has become a simulation city, okay? I call this Psyop city. This is a city where all the Psyops are born and then spread into the masses, okay? We saw this with George Floyd, okay? Now we saw this with Renee Good. We saw this with the 5-year-old that was detained. We saw this with the 37-year-old Alex Preddy. All these stories keep emerging from Psyop city. Guys, all these stories have been manufactured to distract the people of Minneapolis to forget about the frauds that have been uncovered, okay? And frankly, the coverage of these three stories have been unbelievably disgusting. I mean, to use the innocence and the face of this child and plaster his face all over the internet with intentionally deceptive headlines is absolutely disgusting because they're using this child as a pawn, okay? And it's not a coincidence that these ICE incidents in Minnesota just keep popping up while Minnesota is under scrutiny for this massive, massive fraud. And what Nick Shirley uncovered really is only the tip of the iceberg. God knows how deep this scheme goes and how many other politicians are drenched in this corruption. So when I look at these stories, I see the desperation of the Democratic Party, and it's just like, there's something interesting going on here. Guys, let's have a little bit of fun looking into these PSYOP stories, okay? Let's look at what the Democrats posted about this 5-year-old boy, okay? In Minneapolis, ICE arrested a 5-year-old coming home from preschool and tried to use him as human bait. His teacher describes him as a bright young student. These monsters are sick. I just wish we had this same energy for all the children that were trafficked and disappeared under the watch of Biden during his open border policies. I wish we had this energy when children were raped or murdered because of illegal aliens that came in. Where was that energy? It doesn't exist because they don't care. Let's look at what Hillary Clinton said. Enforcing the law is one thing. Terrorizing a population, using children as pawns is another. My heart aches for Leon Ramos and his family. You're right, Hillary. Using children as pawns is terrible, okay? Because let's look at the actual story. On Tuesday, ICE was conducting a targeted operation to arrest Adrian Alexander Conejo Arias, okay? An illegal alien from Ecuador. He happened to be with his son, Liam, and Adrian fled the scene, leaving poor little Liam behind. The DHS Assistant Secretary, Tricia McLaughlin, explains in the following video what happened.
Protest planned today in Minnesota to protest ICE's involvement there. You've got more than 50 Minnesota labor unions, nonprofits, other community organizations calling for a complete economic blackout in the state. This, of course, as the legacy media tries to invent a controversy accusing ICE of detaining a 5-year-old boy. I mean, it just amazes me, Tricia, that you're dealing with all the real world challenges of this issue, and you got to spend time pushing back and trying to respond to fake narratives about ICE detaining a 5-year-old boy when the facts just don't show it.
No, the facts don't show it at all, and this is a horrific smear that we're seeing the mainstream media and politicians on the left, including Kamala Harris, take and run with. The facts are actually that this little boy was abandoned by his own father. His own father was being approached by ICE agents when he ran and abandoned the child. Our law enforcement, in these frigid temperatures, stayed with the child, tried to bring him into custody with the mother, who actually would not take the child into custody, which is so sad, so horrific. Our law enforcement officers actually were taking care of the child, brought him to McDonald's, were playing his favorite music to really calm him down. This is, as Mark, there's major riots forming around our law enforcement officers. That is horrendous that the child is having to face this, but our law enforcement officers were taking care of him, and he's now reunited with his father in a federal processing facility.
And guys, if this little boy had been arrested, you would see images. Gladly, they would post images of this little boy on the ground with, like, handcuffs behind his back. Like, I just cannot believe how many people believe this stuff. how they just run with whatever the media says. But anyways, JD had a statement to say as well.
District here is alleging ICE agents detained a 5-year-old after preschool on Tuesday. We've also seen multiple American citizens detained by ICE or harassed by ICE in the last 6 weeks. Are you proud of how your administration is conducting this immigration crackdown here in Minnesota right now?
Well, I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind law enforcement, and I'm proud of the fact that we're enforcing the country's laws. But, you asked a question about this 5-year-old kid. I actually saw this terrible story while I was coming to Minneapolis. We just left Toledo, Ohio this morning for an economic messaging event. And I see this story, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy. And I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien, and then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense. Now, there are so many of these cases like that where if you just understand the context, there have been a number of situations that I've looked into personally where I say, wait a second, we don't want ICE arresting American citizens. They're supposed to be enforcing the immigration laws against illegal aliens. So then I look into it and I find out that the American citizen who was arrested took a swing at an ICE officer. You can't have that happen. And of course they have to defend themselves. And of course they have the right to detain somebody who assaults a law enforcement officer. Now, this is my point. Do we want these things to happen? Do we want these arrests to be so chaotic? No, we don't. These guys want it least of all, but if we had a little cooperation from local and from local and state officials, I think the chaos would go way down in this community.
It's 2026, guys, and if you're still falling for this kind of propaganda, please do the world a favor and never vote again. For the love of God, please. People will say, I can't believe they're coming after parents with kids. Like, you guys are aware criminals have kids too, right? People lose their parents every day to jail because of the crimes parents commit. Like, you guys are aware of this, right? And people will say they're separating families. Well, they don't have to separate. They can all go home together. And that's exactly where the boy and the father are. They're together in Texas at an immigration detention center. I can't believe this man would run away and leave his son behind. Like, what kind of father are you, bro? Like, that poor Liam, like, he's the victim in all this. He was victimized by his dad, by the media, by the Democrat. Like, it's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. Now, the most recent Psyop story emerged with Alex Preddy, okay? According to the Homeland Security, Alex Preddy was armed with a gun with 2 magazines. If you have a gun, if you have, like, weapons on you and you're trying to confront law enforcement, all my compassion and empathy is just out the window. Like, I don't care. And the fact that this guy got shot is just like, well, what did you expect? What were you thinking, my dude? Like, you think you're Batman or something? Like, why would you bring a weapon, confront law enforcement, and resist, and then be surprised how your life ends? And I hate when people are like, this could happen to anyone. This could happen to you. And it's like, no, because I would never confront law enforcement with a weapon. Like, I'm not that retarded, so no, that can never be me, actually. Like, sorry to break it to you, but no, that would never be me. And Minneapolis is becoming quite dangerous, okay, in the streets, clearly. And again, this is by design, okay, because Mayor Jacob Frey, he claims he wants safety, okay, but he will not deploy the police to act as a buffer between ICE and rioters and residents. Why is that? When we have no buffer, no middleman, these things happen. These things escalate. It's almost like these politicians, they want the chaos. They want the violence. They want disorder. Let's look at what Mayor Jacob Frey had to say.
I just saw a video of more than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents How many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values? How many times must local and national leaders must plead with you, Donald Trump, to end this operation and recognize that this is not creating safety in our city? As you'll hear from Director Sayer in just a second, we have seen these kinds of operations in other places, in other countries, but not here in America. Not in a way where a great American city is being invaded by its own federal government.
I just saw a video. It was a dark night. Tampon Tim walked in. They were masked and said, "The fraud must go on." It was appalling. In Psyop City. Shut the fuck up. I hate this guy. Like, no one believes the word you say. Like, oh, the way it's just like there's nothing even convincing about his like theatrics. That's a great question, Jacob. How many more people need to die before they arrest Waltz, Frey, and Omar? Okay, these instigators want to distract us from their own illegal activity. Okay, look at what Trump had to say. This is the gunman's gun, loaded with 2 additional full magazines and ready to go. What is that all about? Where are the local police? What a great question. Where are the police? Why are you not deploying them so that, you know, we can keep residents of Psyop City safe? Why aren't they allowed to protect ICE officers? The mayor and the governor called them off. It is stated that many of these police were not allowed to do their job. That ICE had to protect themselves, not an easy thing to do. Why does Ilhan Omar have $34 million in her account? And why are there tens of billions of dollars that have been stolen from the once great state of Minnesota? We are there because of massive monetary fraud, with billions of dollars missing, and illegal criminals that were allowed to infiltrate the state through the Democrats' open border policy. We want the money back. And we want it back now. Those fraudsters who stole the money are going to jail where they belong. This is no different than a really big bank robbery. Much of what we're witnessing is a cover-up for this theft and fraud. The mayor and the governor are inciting insurrection with their pompous, dangerous, and arrogant rhetoric. Instead, these sanctimonious political fools should be looking for the billions of dollars that have been stolen from the people of Minnesota and the United States of America. Let our ICE patriots do their job. 12,000 illegal alien criminals, many of them violent, have been arrested and taken out of Minnesota. If they were still there, you would see something far worse than you are witnessing today. Guys, we need to look beyond the stories that the mainstream media tries to feed us all the time, because let's look at what's really going on. This is a distraction for the massive fraud, okay? Probably one of the biggest frauds uncovered in modern U.S. history that was under the watch of Tampon Tim, Ilhan Omar, and we can't seem to explain the mysterious wealth that Ms. Ilhan has acquired in just a year. I mean, the scandal is unbelievable, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's by design, and I advise you to start paying attention. So let's do a quick recap, okay? Because over many years, fraud has been rampant in Minnesota's Somali community. So many of these Somalis started making these big fortunes, okay, by setting up companies under a false guise of social services to receive money from state agencies. And I'm talking millions of dollars. But these social services did not actually exist, okay? And signs of this fraud have been taking place as early as 2019, okay? When Tampon Tim became governor in 2019, the legislative auditor, Jim Nobles, released a report on fraud in Minnesota's Child Care Assistance Program. And over the years, more stories have been coming out about this fraud, but nothing was really done about it. So this has been going on behind closed doors. Well, not really closed doors, because this was like common knowledge, right? This was just happening. But the story didn't really explode until Nick Shirley, a young YouTuber, exposed the fraud by going into these daycares and seeing that there was actually no kids at all. They were run by these Somalians, but there was nothing. Check this out.
We'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like the Al-Shabaab, and others enriched themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen.
Guys, he has a whole documentary exposing all of this, and I advise you guys to check it out. I'll link it down below because that's the real story, guys. But we're not seeing this in our media as much as we're seeing all these coverage about, you know, these fake ICE outrage stories. And again, this is by design. To show you guys how manipulative the media is, let's look on Google how many search results are involving this 5-year-old detained boy. Okay, when you look at 5-year-old detained, there's 83,900 results, at least since I last screen recorded this, right? And you see all these news media outlets, the common ones: CBS, AP News, CNN, the Washington Post. Okay, now let's look up 5-year-old Minnesota, you know, just so we can kind of change up the phrasing a little bit. Let's look at that. 389,000 results. Okay, again, CNN, the Washington Post, CBS News, all of these, PBS, they're all running with this story. Now let's look up Nick Shirley. Wow, just 5,000 results. Interesting. One of the most interesting journalists of our time for what he uncovered, and there's only 5,000 stories with his name. That's interesting. So let's change up the search a little bit. Let's just do Minnesota fraud. Very broad, very general, right? Let's look at just 52,000. And again, this fraud can span not just from what's happening in the Somalian, but from like the history of Minnesota, and even then there's barely anything as compared to these fake ICE outrage stories. And what Nick uncovered was so outrageous and incriminating that Tampon Tim either has to be unbelievably retarded that he just didn't notice. At best, he was just retarded and oblivious, or at worst, he's a criminal and is part of this scheme. I happen to think he's both. Okay, I think he's a retarded criminal. Okay, and he dropped, and interestingly, he dropped his bid for a 3rd term because, according to him, he's planning to just focus on the fraud. You know, that's kind of weird behavior from someone who's supposedly innocent, from somebody who knew about these frauds as early as 2019 and you didn't do anything about it. Interesting. Okay, and this story is so big that it should ideally be one of the biggest media stories covered. Okay, this should be talked about on every news outlet every day, but it's not. Why? Because it's not convenient for the Democratic Party. Okay, this destroys Tampon Tim. This destroys Ilhan Omar. Are we really supposed to believe that these two are not implicated in this fraud? Isn't it interesting that Ilhan Omar, who happens to be Somalian, happens to work in the district that enabled this tremendous Somalian fraud and became insanely rich in the span of 1 year?
Fox News alert: Ilhan Omar under investigation after racking up millions while she was in Congress.
What's the old saying? Follow the money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially in the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The Oversight Chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices. Republicans want to know how the Somali-born Omar and her politically connected husband Tim Minette went from being nearly broke to being worth around $30 million in just a year, according to her 2024 disclosure form.
I'm just gonna make an educated guess and assume that Somalian Ilhan Omar is connected to the Somalian fraud, and it could explain her net worth increasing into unimaginable levels in the span of a year. They started questioning her too, so look at this.
Congresswoman, can you tell us what your response is to the Oversight Committee launching an investigation into your net worth, you and your husband's net worth? They're claiming that it's risen rapidly. What's your response to what they're saying? Do you think they'll find anything in their investigation into your net worth? What's your response to what you've seen from ICE in Minneapolis? You said you're going to vote to not fund DHS, the whole department, or just ICE?
I don't know. She looks guilty. So these fraudsters were caught. Okay, Nick Shirley became their biggest nightmare, and suddenly our media begins investigating Nick Shirley. You would think they would investigate the fraudsters. No, they started investigating Nick Shirley. Okay, Nick started getting death threats. He got doxxed. I mean, he's getting he got security now because he was being threatened and told that he was gonna get kirked. Guys, the corruption is beyond Minnesota. Okay, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Okay, just think about how many politicians are connected to Tampon Tim and Ilhan Omar, and it makes you wonder how many more of these politicians are involved in this scheme. How deep does this go? Guys, Renee Good was a human sacrifice, okay? This poor child was used as a pawn, okay? Alex Preddy was also a human sacrifice, okay? They're engineering stories and engineering outrage to distract you from the crimes and to preserve their political interests, because a lot of these Democrats, they depend on the votes of illegal aliens to stay in power. And the lies of these headlines makes you realize just how desperate these people are. They're so scared that they're making up stories shamelessly. Okay, they're getting people like you and me to debate other people on the facts of these ICE stories so we can just forget about this fraud, okay? Our media is recruiting people on the left to hate us for who we voted for. And when these stories spur out of control, it's in our nature to just we want to talk, we want to spread like the truth. Like, no, actually, this is what happened. But see, this is exactly what they want. They want our attention focused anywhere but on them. So they've succeeded. Even though we're trying to like, hey, this is actually what happened, it's still part of their scheme. You know, it's just to divert attention elsewhere. They want us arguing with each other. They want us to demonize each other. And the rodents who run this country, the rodents who hate this country, they weaponize the media against us because they know America is too polarized, too distracted, too overwhelmed with information that will simply go on with the next thing to be outraged about. And that's really the big story here, guys. It's not these ICE things. It's the fraud. It's the fact that they're putting neighbor against neighbor. The real tragedy of this all is watching these rioters, these people from Minneapolis, whether they were paid to be there or not. It's the fact that they're marching and protesting. ICE arresting pedophiles, murderers, rapists, people who are dangerous and need to go. And they're not rioting over the fact that their representatives were stealing millions of dollars, of tax dollars, of your hard-earned money to enrich themselves. And yet, they're being programmed and engineered to attack our ICE agents. I just wish I saw the energy, this anger, this frustration towards these politicians instead. But see, that's the power of the media. They're so good at weaponizing this, dude, and it's just like the brainwashing goes so deep. I mean, even Nick Shirley talked about this, guys.
What's one belief about the world that you had that you no longer hold?
Now I do believe for certain that there is brainwashing. We're seeing real brainwashing in real time where people will support fraud. People will support somebody who's here illegally or the capturing of Maduro. Joe Biden also wanted to capture Maduro. He had a $25 million bounty. Trump goes and does it, and then the Democrats are coming after him for saying it's bad. And so brainwashing is very real. I've seen it firsthand. People, you question their logic and they can't come up with a sentence because that brainwashing that they had actually never provided them proof, but they believed it, and they can't think of other ways to look at things from a different perspective because of the brainwashing that's taken place.
You know, it's really interesting that Tampon Tim said he's going to focus on the fraud, right? And so I started scrolling through Tampon Tim's, Ilhan Omar's, Jacob Frey's social media, right? I was just like, let me see how often they talk about this fraud. And you just scroll and scroll, and they don't mention this fraud at all. Like, I didn't see anything. I might have maybe it's more further back. I didn't like go all the way, but I kept scrolling. All I saw was ICE. Get the hell out of Minnesota, ICE. Like, it's just ICE and nothing about this fraud. I'm like, interesting. And like, even if they genuinely disagreed with the presence of ICE, you would think that they would still talk about this fraud, that this would be something on the forefront of their social media because they want to, fix the situation. And no, You don't get that at all. It's just ice. They're just diverting attention. They don't care, guys. They don't care. You really think they care about little Liam? You really think they want justice for little Liam? They don't, okay? These are the same people who opened up fake daycare centers for children, okay? The Quality Learning Center. You guys remember that? For children. While taking money that could have gone to children, and then you expect me to believe that these same people care about little Liam? Absolutely not. They don't care. It's all a lie. They're manipulators. They're fraudsters. It was a dark night in Psyop City. No, seriously, guys. Like, I am so, like, oh my gosh. Like, I can't believe how fucking evil these people are. Crazy times we live in, guys. But that is it for today. Please hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. What was your reaction to these stories? How deep do you think this fraud goes? Who do you think is implicated that it's, like, outside of Minnesota? Very fascinating to watch, you know, the normies and the NPCs just fall in line, you know, to whatever the mainstream media tells them to do, and they're just like programmed, and we're just watching this like, damn, like these people are long gone, like they live in a different trajectory, they're just gone, they're in a different dimension, there's no talking with them, there's no reasoning with them, their minds are, they've been programmed, guys, like they're elsewhere, unfortunately, we've lost them. And so it's important, guys, that we stay in line with what we should be focused on, and not like debating these little stories and all the little details of these stories all the time, because then we lose the plot, we get distracted. And that's exactly what these people want, is for us to be distracted, polarized, and for us to be arguing amongst each other, and we're not gonna allow this to happen. Absolutely not. So let's not lose our sight on these fraudsters. So yeah, please subscribe to my channel. I would very much appreciate that. I love you guys. Bye.
We all know why this is happening. It's because of the whites. So because of that, I'm going to focus my attention elsewhere and will not be running again.
Get off the screen!
Yeah, go home! Go home!
This guy sucks!
Go home! Take a hike! With that being said, since I won't be running, I think we should let bygones be bygones. Thank you.
Sir, one more question. Are the allegations true? Can you comment on the investigation?
Step on it! Take me to the airport. I need to get the hell out of Minnesota before any more YouTubers show up.
Done and done.